You can now stream the forbidden documentary Occult Louisiana free on Fossum Free Movies and TV, which is available on Fire Stick, Roku, iOS, and Android. Look for it soon on Tubi as well. Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Peter Kling. First, I'm going to run through these announcements. Stream the forbidden documentary, Occult Louisiana, for free, now on Fossum TV. Available on your Fire TV, iOS, Android, and Roku. It will also soon be dropping on multiple streaming platforms, including Tubi. Other great ways to help support Forbidden Knowledge News is to go to Rokfin.com/FKN Plus and sign up for a premium membership. With that, you get access to all of our premium content and all the premium content from every creator on Rokfin. You can also help by downloading our episodes directly through Spreaker, which is our podcast provider. That's always free to you. Finally, I'm booking guests for March and April. If you have suggestions or you would like to be a guest, email me, forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today, I want to welcome back to the show Peter Kling. He is an author and researcher whose family has a 500-year history of standing for truth. He used his education and life experience to unlock the secrets in the scriptures, which the church has kept hidden for thousands of years, including evidence of a history of interactions with interdimensional beings. Peter, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you doing?
I am excellent. It's great to hear from you. It has been a few years since we last spoke, and, well, to say a lot has happened is really an understatement. We've got a lot to get into today. You're a biblical scholar with unique insights into the scriptures. Today we're going to once again apply biblical prophecy to the events unfolding now. Pandemic scares, social unrest and division, wars, rumors of wars, and, of course, the revelations of probable alien visitations from our own government and media. So there is a lot to discuss in a short amount of time. Before we get to this, for those that may not be familiar, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Well, the older you get, the more you come to realize it or find out, because sometimes technology gets better. And I found a very interesting little piece of history that kind of puts everything together. But where I started out was basically, I started my Bible education. Not that I started it, but it was kind of interesting the way it did start. And pretty much before the age of 5, I had a complete comprehension of the scriptures. Everything from Genesis to Revelation. And it's not that I, could read or was, some kind of, I guess, for my age, I probably was a little bit of a savant, but all this, I took to it like a duck took to water, and I comprehended the whole message that, we were created by our Heavenly Father, Yahweh. We are, interestingly enough, we are the only direct creation from God other than Jesus. So we have a close relationship here. The problem is that, we've been at the mercy of basically, if you want to just call it what it is, an alien invasion for 6,000 years almost. And we'll explain a little bit more about that, because people hear the Bible and it puts them off. anyway, they have this religious, oh, you were bad, you're going to burn in hell. Stop that, because religion doesn't teach the scriptures. They don't teach the message within the Bible. It takes a special kind of person, not to decode what's there, but to comprehend and apply it. And so I had an event that happened. I got to see the future at the age of 9, and I lived through a future event that I saw, and I was like, how did this happen? And the spiritual door got shut in my face, and so I had to figure it out. And I prayed about it, and I knew the story of Samuel when he was given to the temple, and he started his prophecy work at the age of 8. It was like, but I'm just a kid. Well, I guess so was Daniel. I couldn't quite figure all this out. And so I turned to science to look for the answers. And I literally grew up with a test tube in one hand and a Bible in the other hand, especially with the theory of evolution going on versus the theory of creation. I spent a lot of time in museums looking at what was written in stone. It's hard to argue with something that is written in stone. But, you listen to both sides, and both sides just didn't add up. And, my biblical knowledge expanded. It continued to expand, and so did my scientific knowledge, because the scientific realms were growing. And when I decided to put them both together, it was about 1980 that I said, look, I'm going to reevaluate the Bible right from Genesis all the way through Revelation, but only I'm going to look at it through the eyes of a scientist, because that's basically what I had become. My major was chemistry and biology. I was working in a research and development lab in one of the finest laboratories in the United States. And I was waiting for an experiment. I had to let this batch cool down. While it was cooling down, I was reading the book of Job. So I must have been going through a little turmoil. I always read the book of Job when I was going through turmoil back then. But it opened my eyes to look deeper and look for scientific answers for biblical questions. And where it kind of smacked me in the face, and I said, this is real evidence, was in Genesis, the 2nd chapter, verses 21 through 23. And what is described there, this is, God says it's not good for the man to be alone. I'm going to create a helper for him. So what happens? The man is anesthetized. He's put unconscious. His flesh is opened up, and a part of his rib is removed, and then the flesh is healed over. And then they take this part of this rib, and they genetically engineer it into a woman, because that's exactly what it takes. You have to genetically engineer it. I don't care what you want to describe it as. It's genetic engineering. And Adam even knew it, because he said, at last, this is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one was taken from man. I shall call her woman. And so basically now you've got the seeding of a perfect human DNA couple that is here to fill an earth that is in perfect harmony and balance. Yes, we were seeded. Adam, a direct creation from the Almighty, from He who causes to become, which is what Yahuwah or Yahweh or Jehovah means, He who causes to become, and so became life on this planet, but not just life, intelligent life. And when we go back to Genesis chapter 1, God said, let us, plural, create man in our image, plural again. So who's the us? Who's the our? Do they look like us? Well, maybe visibly speaking, if when they take their normal shape, maybe they do look like us. But we know that they can travel interdimensionally, and they're not subject to the rules of the third 3 dimensions in which we live. And by the way, we live in dimensions 8, 9, and 10, not 1, 2, and 3, according to string theory. According to string theory, there could be a lot of multiverses out there. That's actually super string theory. So anyway, the long and the short of it is, I spent a lifetime putting this all together and coming up with an explanation. And so I authored the book, Letters to Earth, You Can Survive Armageddon, which is quickly becoming a history book. I released it 15 years ago. And not too many people took note, but it's interesting, the people that did. I was able to reach the highest places in society. Uh, I mean, right into the heart of the Illuminati itself. Kind of paid the price for that, but you know, it goes with the territory. They didn't like prophets of Yahweh back in the day. You know, prophets were stoned, and not in a good way either. You know,
Right,
you
right.
know, just joking around there. You know, that they were stoned to death.
Yeah.
So you know, that they were looked upon because a lot of the people were sinning. The people were committing gross sins. They were worshiping Molech, sacrificing their children, and the prophets condemned them for it. They were Baal worshipers, and the prophets condemned them for it. But not just the people; they were being led by the religious leaders of Jehovah's chosen people gone bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that, the prophets prophesied against them. Well, wait a minute. This used to be a very Christian country. What's happened to it? You know, God and country. Well, which God do we have residing with us here now? Which are the principalities? So being able to break all of this down and put it in a logical, you know, basically I answered the questions of life, where we came from, what we're doing here now and why things are so messed up, and what our future is. And everybody wants to know what our future is. And that's what's in Letters to Earth. And so I took on the moniker, the Einstein of biblical prophecy, because I applied science. I was probably the first one ever to do this. There's a lot of other people that are applying science now, but there's nobody that has the legacy. Now, the interesting thing about my legacy is essentially I have risen up against the injustices, telling the truth to those who have caused injustice to God's children, us, the humans, you know, that those of us who inhabit this planet and love life. And I expose the church for its role and complicity in all of this. And also what we are calling the Khazarian Mafia. I especially went after the Khazarian Mafia in Letters to Earth. Yeah, you pay a heavy price when you expose the truth. So that's a whole other show. But here's the interesting thing: I only found out, and it was just about the time that I kind of disappeared. It was about a year before, and what I had found out is my family history, and I had searched for my family history for years, especially when the internet came up. You know, it's like at least once a year I'd look for family history. And all I really knew, and this was passed down from generation to generation, basically, is that we were bell makers. We made bells. We were ironsmiths or metallurgists, which is interesting because both my grandfather and his brother, my great granduncle, or my granduncle, I guess you would call him, they both were machinists and experts in their capabilities. So they were carrying on the family tradition, even though they didn't know the family tradition as being metal workers. But there was another family tradition. The original name of the family was Kling and Schmidt, and that's actually ring maker or bell maker, but it's the sound that the bell makes, the peal, that toll, that sound that the bell makes. So we were the family that made the sound of the bell. And so that's what the original family name was. And the other side of that is we were close friends and supporters of Martin Luther at the time of the Reformation. And the Klingenschmidts and other families in the area who supported Martin Luther all supported the Reformation against the church. So essentially, we denounced the church. And then we took turns the families that were closest to Martin Luther took turns hiding him while he was translating the Bible from Latin into German. And for that, we were hunted down for over 250 years. We were murdered in the fields. We were murdered in the streets. We were murdered in our sleep in bed. And so we scattered. Interestingly enough, I've got an ancestor who came to America back in the late 1600s. And they moved further west to western Pennsylvania. They built what was known as Fort Klingenschmidt in it's now near the town of Jeannette, Pennsylvania. but there was an Indian raid against the fort. And two brothers were taken. One of the brothers, the older one, who was about 16, escaped and made his way back to the fort the same day, but they never found the other brother until years later when he resurfaced. And the Seneca had sold him to the Onondaga, and while he was with the Onondaga Nation, he actually wound up becoming chief. And he was an ambassador to the Seven Nations. And he was known as, this is hilarious, he was known as Chief White Peter or Chief Good Peter. So it's like, okay, come on, give me a break on this stuff. Talk about, genetics having long-term memory. It's in our genes. Yeah, it goes back to our genes. Are we connected back to, through the bloodline back to Adam? Or are we part of the cabal who say that their bloodline gets traced back directly to Satan through the bloodline of Cain? Now, the Bible doesn't support that, but the Talmud, which is as Jesus put it, the Talmud was the traditions of men, which they brought back from them when they immigrated from Babylon back to Judea to rebuild the temple. They brought the Talmud, and that became part of their religious belief. And so they had the Torah and the Talmud. You have some sects that believe more in the Torah. You have other sects that think the Torah is a bunch of garbage. It's the Talmud. And so the whole planet, through this over the last 2,000 years, between the Khazarian Mafia and the corrupt church, has been infiltrated and been put under Babylonian debt slavery.
Yes.
And that's where we find ourselves today. I'm going to step off to the side and make a little side note.
Yeah.
I love people that think the earth is flat and it's dome covered. And these are Anunnaki worshipers, because Anu was the god of a flat domed earth. They're worshiping Anu and they don't even know it. Isn't that interesting? And so where did the Babylonians get their law and their method of operation? From the Anunnaki, according to the Babylonian text. So we're under Anunnaki debt slavery, who has forced, who compelled people in a roundabout way to say, no, the earth is flat and it's dome-shaped and we can't escape it, and NASA tells lies, and you can't reason with these people because they've just gone off the edge and they're unreasonable.
Yes, there's a lot of division through the misinformation and counterintelligence that's been inserted into this community. It's all by design. It's all to keep us as far away from each other as possible and as separated from each other as possible. So it's something that we have to deal with in this community, unfortunately. But I want to get to the events that have been unfolding over the past few years. It's been a while since we spoke, and like I said, a lot has happened. I'd love to get your insights into the events unfolding and how it relates to biblical prophecy, starting with the events of 2020 with our great pandemic.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the great pandemic. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover three different chapters here so we can comprehend more along the timeline is where we are. But we're going to have to jump back a little bit before 2020. We're going to have to actually jump back to 2012 because this is the start of where we are today, and I'm pretty much convinced of it, based on what the scriptures say and based on what we have seen develop here in the last 11 years. Interesting number. But what happens or 12 years actually, what happens in 2112 was supposed to be the end of the world, right? And it was actually the end of the Mayan Baktun calendar. And then they said, oh, no, we kind of screwed up because nothing happened. We didn't see Quetzalcoatl come back. But what happened in 2012 is they cranked up CERN. Now, Shiva, who is the destroying god of Hinduism, is the mascot of CERN. They've got an image to Shiva there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It started up. Puppies. Yeah, she's got to get her 2 cents in. Sasha. Yeah, that's my big puppy. Anyway, so yeah, they like to be on the radio too. What can I say? But you've got the crank up of CERN, and then in 2013 it cranked up again. Now, in my humble opinion, because we saw what was then known as the Mandela effect, where things change for like, how did this happen? Probably the most notable one, which caught me totally by surprise when I came across it. I was actually in a room full of Bible scholars, and they read Isaiah, and they're reading it out loud, and the wolf shall lay with the lamb, and I was like, wait a minute, and I literally looked up, and I looked around the room. There was probably about 200 people there, and I'm looking around the room to see if there's another head that's looking around the room. You know, it's like, did I just, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This used to say lion. I know it said lion. I've been reading lion my whole life. You know, I've even got a picture. I got a picture of a lion playing with a lamb. It didn't change. Interestingly enough, when you look at other literature that, you know, like Bible dictionaries and things like that, any reference back to Isaiah, it talks about the lion laying with the lamb. But in the scripture, it got changed. So exactly how that happened, I don't know. But a lot of things happened across the universe that way. So there could have only been a rift in time. I have no other way to put it. But we go to Revelation 9, and it says, and one of the stars which fell to heaven was given the key to the pit of the abyss, and he opens up the abyss, and people get, you know, directed to this blast furnace of smoke and all the locust plague that's released on Earth, which interestingly enough does not affect any of the vegetation, nor does it affect any of the people who have the seal of God in their forehead. It only attacks those people in that don't have God's approval, and causes them not death, but they feel like dying, and death keeps escaping them. Interesting. But the key point is here, it says they have a king over them, and in Hebrew he is known as Abaddon, but in Greek his name is Apollyon. Apollyon is a destroying angel. Okay, now, so you have this destroying angel released along with this horde that came out of the pit of the abyss. And they don't go after God's people. They go after the people who don't have the seal of God. Interestingly, as you go on throughout chapter 9, it talks about a plague, and that a third of the people of Earth would be killed by the plague. This is through plague by war. It's a little difficult to discern because you have a whole different set of players coming into here in chapter 9. But then it also talks about the longsword, and it also, you know, that a third killed by plague, a third killed by a war, basically. And still, those who are behind this, who are able to escape, do not repent of their ways. So is this a third that is sided with the satanic cabal?
Right.
I would guess so, yeah. But they still don't repent of their spiritistic practices. What would be their spiritistic practices? You know, I mean, like child kidnapping and child sacrifice, adrenochrome, things of that nature?
Yeah.
Yeah, hello. You know, if you haven't figured out that this world is being ruled by a satanic cabal, it's time to wake up and smell the roses, so to speak. But what you're going to smell ain't going to pass for roses, that's for sure. So here's the setup. Now we can go into more detail, but time is probably not going to permit us to do that. So the king of the pit of the abyss is released. Now, interestingly enough, kingdoms are usually portrayed as beasts. And so, you know, there's a lot of beasts, especially within Revelation. It's like, okay, which beast are we dealing with here? But in this case, we're going to jump to Revelation 17, because the wording in Revelation 17 is quite interesting. And you can't read it one verse after another verse after another verse. You have to separate the verses in order to get the complete scenario without interruption. And basically, this is Revelation 17 is talking about this woman who is called the Great Harlot, Babylon, is riding this scarlet-colored wild beast, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, the scarlet color would indicate kingdoms run by royalty, so to speak, as opposed to governments run by politicians. Because there's also a 7-headed, 10-horned wild beast in Revelation 13 that's a composite beast, not scarlet colored. It ascends out of the sea of turmoil of the nations, and that is a governmental agency. That beast is actually becomes the League of Nations, which becomes the United Nations. That's more of another in-depth study there. Mm-hmm. But getting back to the scarlet-colored wild beast, the 7 heads are the 7 kingdoms, the 7 kingdoms which have ruled the world. Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome. Rome gets 2 horns because of Rome and Constantinople. It was a split kingdom. And then you've got the 2 horns. That's my clock that you hear in the background. It makes bird noises when you're getting close to the top of the hour. Anyway, it lets me know where we are here. Anyway, and then you've got England, which is actually kind of spring off from Rome, but you know, they beat Rome back and let Rome live, whatever. But you've got England and the United States, which is the last of the world powers, and they each have a head. I mean, each have a horn. 1 head, 2 horns. So you've got 10 kingdoms. You've got 7 heads for the world powers, and you know, let's face it. England was the power of the sea, and the sun never set on English soil for almost 200 years. And then the United States took over the torch and became a superpower, right? And that may not be true anymore. I don't know. You know, we've had to deal with the show, the fake show in fake Washington, D.C., which isn't even part of the United States.
Right.
So, so here we have now this beast, and so how this starts to read in Revelation 17, it talks about a beast that ascends out of the abyss, a scarlet-colored wild beast, and it is an 8th king. In other words, 1 more kingdom is going to be set up. It's from the royal houses, basically, because it's all making reference to kings and kingdoms. And so this 8th beast, which ascends out of the abyss, well, we now know who that 8th king is, Apollyon. This king has great wonderment. This beast has great wonderment by the inhabitants of the world. It's like, wow, where did this guy come from? Look at all of this. And so what this beast then does, it's put together a coalition of 10 kings who do not yet have a kingdom. Worldwide coalition, 10 being the earthly complete number. So a worldwide coalition. And so the purpose of this worldwide coalition is to go against, they turn against the harlot, Babylon the Great, which, okay, you want to know who the harlot is? Let's go back to child trafficking. Anybody, Vatican, anybody? Yeah. Come on, the atrocities and wars that the Vatican has created among since time immemorial, since the days of Rome. Yeah, there's the harlot. But it's Babylon the Great because it's the replacement for the Babylonian Empire. You see, it wasn't the Roman Empire that took up the Babylonian teachings, although they had plenty of their own gods. They didn't need the Babylonian gods. And Constantine. I forgot his name for a second. Constantine was a Mithra worshiper. That's why, so Mithra was the pagan version of Jesus, okay? Originally, Mithra, another name for Mithra, would have been Tammuz, the son of Theriamus, who was the original whore of Babylon, back during the days of Nimrod's empire. And she was a prostitute that Nimrod brought home from one of his conquests, and she became the queen of Babylon. She also became the goddess of the earth, the moon, and the stars. And so Islam adopts not a cross, but a crescent moon with a star. Sirianus' womb giving birth to the star gods. And so it's repeated in Egyptian history. So, but that's where it all comes to. You look at a typical statue of Mary holding the baby. It presents her as a star goddess standing on the earth. So you got the earth, you got Mary and the baby, Sirianus and Tammuz, anybody? And you got the stars and the moon behind her, the heavens behind her. And they think they're worshiping, oh, this is the Virgin Mary. No, it's not. It's Sirianus, that's Tammuz. You're worshiping essentially Isis and Horus. It's like, come on. Go look at ancient history. So the whole world is duped. And where we are now is in the middle of a PSYOP operation. Now, there's one other caveat in this, and we have to go back, and it's interesting. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, and chapter 3, verse 9 pretty much say the same thing. I usually quote in 3, verse 9, or paraphrase it, but it says simply this: I will make those from the synagogue of Satan who claim to be Jews and are not but are lying, I will bring them before you, and they will do obeisance at your feet, for they shall come to know that I have loved you. Wait a minute. Those from the synagogue of Satan who claim to be Jews and are not but are lying. Anyone? Khazarian Mafia, anybody? Mm-hmm. The banksters that have been ruling this world and getting rich off of our backs? Yeah. Those same banksters who have put us under Babylonian debt slavery. Geez, it all goes back to Babylon.
Yeah.
It goes back to the Anunnaki. It goes back to, you want to believe Anu's your God, help yourself. Because it all goes back to Satan worship.
Yeah.
And so...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so here's where we are. We've been put under this PSYOP control. They're trying, and we're in a battle. And there are some legal issues. Keep in mind that those who were originally put in the pit of the abyss were the Watchers from the book of Enoch, or in Genesis, they're called the sons of the true God, who saw that earth women were hot. And so they came down and they took wives of all whom they chose, and they created the Nephilim and they wreaked such havoc on the earth that Father Yahweh himself said, I am hurt at the heart that I even created man because of all of his badness. And so he shortens the lifespan to 120 years. He finds favor in this man Noah, who's stuck to his guns. He was like the only guy on the planet, him and his family, that was worth saving. And so most likely a generation or two died out before Noah got on the ark and the floods came. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason I say that is because Noah lived to be over 600 years. It took about 150 years to build the ark. That's a whole generation of people that have to go away, that come and go if the lifespan is only shortened to 120. And by then, the Nephilim would have all been dead, because how could Noah possibly build the ark if the Nephilim were there to wreck it? Now, we saw the movie Noah. Nice little fake story tale. It kind of resembles what was written in the Bible, but not exactly. Far from it, as a matter of fact. But what we do have was in the book of Enoch that these angelic creatures, these interdimensionals who were supposed to be supervising the growth of humans, how they were, getting along on the planet, instead of being caretakers, they raped us, and they seeded us with superhumans, and that's pretty much what happened. So they're all gathered up and they're thrown into the pit of the abyss. But now here's the question. Here's where the legality comes in. You see, at this point, once the human DNA was no longer perfect, once that DNA was corrupted, there was the connection between Adam and his creator, our creator, Yahuwah or Yahweh, that was broken. So that spiritual bond, that spiritual attachment that we had was no longer in place. We always would have to, it wasn't two-way anymore. If at best, it would only be really one way, and hope that eventually God answers our prayers. Because remember, it says that God walked with Adam in the breezy part of the day. It was father-son time. It was communication. So there was direct communication, one-on-one, back with our Creator. We don't have that now. All we have is a PSYOP scenario that's been going on for almost 6,000 years.
Right. You mentioned PSYOP scenario. I think this is a very important aspect to touch on, is that both sides, whether it's far right or far left, are part of the same beast, and that we are being led into this era that seemingly is going to be cleaning up the mess, getting rid of the pedophile, Satanist, lizard people, and bringing us into this new utopian era, when in reality, the right swing is going to lead to something maybe far worse than what we could imagine with Nazi Germany.
Yeah, because you see, what I didn't talk about in Revelation 17 was the verse before the one that says what's going to happen to Babylon the Great. Babylon the Great gets stripped naked, it's fully exposed, her fleshy parts are eaten up, so any valuables, anything that's worthwhile is going to be consumed. And the rest will be burned with fire as if it never even existed. And so, but what happens before that, when this beast systems, this coalition, actually what it says before that, that's why I said you had to break it down. This beast system is only going to last a short time. And the reason for that is that it does battle with the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So now you got to jump to chapter 21. Now, how does all this come about? Here's where I brought out who has the legal right. We know when Jesus was tempted, Satan took him to an unusually high place, showed him all the kingdoms of the world, and said, look, you can have all of these for an act of worship to me, because they've been put in my hands and I can do with them as I please. And Jesus said, get away from me. It's only Father Yahweh alone that you must worship. And so then Satan left. But now, what kind of deal did he cut with the Watchers to get them to come to Earth to father this race of super beings that would destroy the planet? What did he give them? Did they have to commit an act of worship to take control of planet Earth? If that's the case, then that would have superseded everything now, wouldn't it? Since they're back on the scene, it's like the king has come back from his trip. Where's my kingdom? And so this king, which ascends out of the pit of the abyss, puts together a worldwide coalition. The first thing that they do is go after the Satanists. Interesting. Wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Yeah. They have to get rid of the Satanists first. Now, I do make reference to lots of people that, when they've got something good, I'll give credit where credit is due. And just recently, within the last 2 months, I was actually listening to Kerry Cassidy, and that's how, we could do a whole show about Kerry Cassidy, but regardless, she's got a long life in this fight, if you want to call it that. She hasn't just popped on the scene in the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, like 90% of the people that are out there.
I remember listening to her back in the day.
Yeah, she was one of the staples. But how did she get all the whistleblowers? Who was funneling these whistleblowers to her? And yeah, maybe she came under attack from time to time for going, stepping out of bounds. But who was funneling the whistleblowers? How come they, not too many of those? I don't recall any of them being suicided.
Right.
So where other whistleblowers seem to have a very short lifespan. Well, regardless, however you want to, look at that. But she said this, which I thought was very interesting. And she was quoting one of her sources that was associated with the British military. He had passed about 10 years ago, she said. She wouldn't give his name. You know, she just, at least I didn't hear her say it. But what this whistleblower said is that he laid out exactly what their plan was, which included the pandemic, which included taking down this Khazarian mafia and having a financial global reset. And then, because, you know, we'll have this pause, and I've heard that term pause several times over the past year, and then they're going to go after religion and take down religion. And after they take down religion, that because religion is the biggest obstacle to peace on this planet, they intend to have a one world united planet so that we can then join the Galactic Federation of Planets, and that they were going to help us fight a huge alien war which was headed our way. And it was like, really? Could that attacking alien army be the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, coming with the armies, plural, of heaven to turn around, lay siege to this planet, and capture all of the interdimensional rebels that have taken control of this planet, and to do a thorough cleaning of house, to get rid of all governments who stand in the way of the real reformation of planet Earth, which will essentially exercise every demonic force and anyone who supports their way of life off this planet and put into the pit of the abyss. The humans, they will come to an end. Those human supporters of this empire of evil will come to an end. So we're at a point right now where, you know, we have to choose wisely. We have to be aware of the pitfalls because everything's a psyop. We hear of this great reset. Everybody's going to have money. We're going to have peace on the planet. Wait a minute. You mean just that whenever it is that the nations declare peace and security, then just as the pangs of distress of a pregnant woman, in other words, just when a woman goes into labor, the end will be instantly upon them. So the question is, do we have the reset before they take down religion? Do we have the big reset after they take down religion? I'm thinking, based on what I've heard, we're going to see the Khazarian mafia and the banking cabal go away. We're going to get out from under the debt slavery, and then religion will be exposed for what it is, and the rest of the fleshy parts will be consumed. More wealth transfer, how about that? And then we'll even forget it existed, because we will finally be free from the slavery that we've been put under for, as a country, since Washington, D.C. became Washington, D.C., an independent city-state which was ruling the colonies. An independent city-state that answered only to the Queen and to the Vatican. The City of London, the Vatican, and Washington, D.C. are separate countries within a country. So the people who make our laws don't even reside in the United States of America. Now, as far as this coalition and this worldwide set of kingdoms coming together, what did Trump do when he came on the scene? Where did he go? I just saw a video that has been circulating where Trump is walking past the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. No one's allowed to touch the Crown Prince, but Trump pats him on the shoulder. The prince was like, "Who touched me?" Yeah, it was like, okay. And the caption was, "The king can do what he wants."
Yeah.
I love the picture of, there's two pictures that you want to talk about contrast. You can find these pictures online. Type in Pope and Obama, Pope Francis and Obama, White House. And you'll see the two of them laughing. There'll be a picture, I'll guarantee you it'll come up, one of the first ones you'll see. The two of them are laughing, almost what appears to be, Obama's almost laughing hysterically, and the Pope's got this big smile, and he's got to be chuckling. And then you go look at the picture of Trump and the Pope. The Trump just looks like he ate a canary. He looks like the cat that ate the canary. And you look at the Pope, and the Pope's standing there like, that SOB just ate my canary. He is so long in the face. He just got his canary eaten.
Yeah.
So what did Trump do? And then you go look at the boondoggle with the Queen of England. Oh, Trump's a buffoon. Look, he's walking in front of the Queen. Nobody's supposed to do that. What nobody commentated on was that the following year, Trump went to England again, and it was interesting. I watched the review of the Royal Guard, who was then Prince. What's his name there? Prince. Oh shucks, talk about him. Prince Charles. Thank you, Prince Charles. Walks Trump. Now here you have the Royal Guard all at attention, right? And they're playing, whatever music that they're playing as Trump walks out with Prince Charles. And so then the ceremony pauses there, and Charles stands off to the side while Trump reviews the troops by himself. What? Huh. I've never seen that before, military protocol. Now, I'm not an expert by any means, and don't take my word for it, but I've known what I've seen before, and I ain't never seen a world leader visiting the guards of any other country without that country's world leader escorting them down the line.
Yeah.
But here, Trump's reviewing the guards by himself. Go on YouTube, you can find the video.
Right.
Why? What just happened there?
Yeah, what do you think Trump's role is in these unfolding events and what's to come in the future?
Apollyon.
Ah, there you go.
Somebody has to be controlling the situation. Now, am I saying that Trump is possessed by Apollyon? I don't think I go quite that far. Mm. But if they're taking cues from AI, what exactly is AI, if you want to question that?
Right.
Or who's really at the top of the white hats? Mm. You see, because this coalition now has to go along. Now, interestingly enough, when we're going to backtrack here to 2013, because two things we never got to see the greatest comet that its civilization never saw, which was Comet Ison, which was the Mayan symbol, which was going to be the Mayan image of their feathered snake god coming back. Mm-hmm. Comet Ison was destroyed coming around the backside of the sun. Something destroyed it, and it wasn't the sun, because the coma from the comet is blowing perpendicular to the solar stream. Wait a minute. It's blowing against the solar wind? Yes, it's blowing against the solar wind. So what force is able to push the coma of the comet perpendicular to the solar wind? I don't know. But we had the Mandela ritual funeral, which lasted for 10 years. Somehow this crazy guy is signing in sign language next to Obama. But allegedly, the whole thing was a cover for a signing with a treaty by different nations, including the Vatican, with an off-world entity. And they claimed that this entity was Marduk. I don't think so. I think that entity was Apollyon. Now, the only way that you would know that is to study the scriptures. Because while that was going on, while that was happening, the Mandela ritual funeral, on the other side of the planet, the two scientists who were left, was actually three that were working on it, they received, working on discovering the God particle, the experiment which opened the key to the pit, which was the opening of the pit of the abyss. They were getting the Nobel Peace Prize. At the same time that Nelson Mandela, the Mandela effect Mandela, is being buried. is having his ritual 10-day funeral. Now, Mandela gets interned on the 15th. On the 16th, had Comet Ison survived, it would have been perfectly aligned with Venus in the evening sky, and it would have looked like a giant exclamation point, or the feathered snake god returning. Whoa, I guess the Mayans just had their butts handed to them because the sign of their god was destroyed.
Huh.
That's interesting. Yeah. So you see, we're playing this at it truly is multi-dimensional, multi-level, or multi-dimensional chess, because it's not just moves that are being made on the planet. Mm. It's moves that are being made against enemies that are principalities of this world, those who've been ruling the kings, those who have been calling the shots, those who have been subservient to Satan, and now they find themselves subservient to Apollyon, who's laid legal claim to the planet based on an agreement that was set up almost, about 5,000 years ago. Yeah. Mm. Everything. The Bible is exopolitics. It's the politics that are going on here on Earth to get us back to the point that we need to be, where that entity that we refer to as Jesus or Yeshua, the Christ or the Messiah, takes his position as King of Kings and Lord of Lords and liberates us. Hmm. And so, do you support Trump? Do you support, the puppet in the White House? I don't think there's anybody in the White House, to be honest with you.
Right.
I saw a few days ago that the lighthouse was lit up gold. Reset anybody? I don't know. We're at a point where hold on tight, be prepared, and the best thing that we could do now is seriously, and I do not mean this in any religious sense or manner, it's time to have that come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
It's time to align ourselves with our heritage. This used to be a Christian country. And I'm not talking religious. Remember, religion gets destroyed. Mm-hmm. All those 501c, whatever tax deductible corporate entities they are.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. You're part of the corporation. You're a dead corpse. And all dead corpses are subject to the mother of all the dead corpses, which would be the Vatican. Mm-hmm. It was said that the Romans invented incorporation and the Vatican perfected it. Right. So every 501, every corporation is controlled by the Vatican. You want to know what's going on with the shipping lanes? Why we're not seeing shipments?
Yeah.
Go read Revelation 18, the second half of Revelation 18. And it talks about all those who make their living by the sea, the captains, the merchants, the sailors. They all stand back. They see that Babylon the Great is being destroyed, and they don't want to have anything to do with that. Interestingly enough, the Holy See, SEE, controls all shipping on the face of the planet. Mm-hmm. Or they used to. So what happened to the shipping? Well, I don't know. Maybe Babylon the Great is being attacked. Right. Trump put on a terrible-looking face on the Pope for some reason. The Pope was not happy with Trump's visit.
Now
So this is...
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that this is the underlying theme of all of this is a eternal battle between these forces that lie beyond our perception, whether you want to say they're extraterrestrial or interdimensional, and this is all coming to a head during this time right now. And what we're seeing in the news and media about extraterrestrials and aliens, we're having increasingly what you would consider quote-unquote supernatural events being reported in the mainstream media, mostly surrounding the UFO phenomena, these big shows on the History Channel that are showing UFOs left and right, attempting to have these scientific experiments, shows like Skinwalker Ranch, and it is all implanting in the consciousness of the people that, yes, we could be dealing with off-planet intelligences. There are many that believe that this is another psychological operation, that there will be some sort of staged alien event that is going to attempt to change the consciousness of the people. But based off of what you're saying, it could be that they are getting ahead of some real event that could be in the future. What do you think about that?
They're planning for a real event that's ahead in the future, yes, and I don't see why we need a false flag alien event when there's real aliens. Mm-hmm. You know, here's the situation, and this goes back. I remember when I was 13 years old, I was watching the public broadcasting station, and they had this goes back to my love of science, and I was understanding genetic engineering, and this was 1969. I was watching a convention of genetic engineers and other biologists and scientists, and they were trying to draw the line, come to some sort of agreement where genetic engineering ends, so this way they can't start playing God. And no agreement was ever reached, ever. We've had, a ban on using human fetus stem cells, but no ban was ever put on genetic engineering. So, we don't know what alien army they genetically engineered. Look at Star Wars. And I'm, may the Force be with all of us. May Father Yahweh be with all of us if we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
So right now, we are not the rebels, okay? And we're not the Empire. What we are, is basically a planet. We're basically the Ewoks here, and our planet has been captured, and we have to, do what we can in order to survive this mess. But that might be a little oversimplification. But what the reality is that I'm going to say 90%, maybe not all, and there's a reason for this. It's actually a biblical reason. About 90% of the, quote, aliens that we have, I don't give a darn where they come from, where they say they come from, because they're going to lie to us. You think they're going to tell us the truth? No, they're going to lie to us. It's like, the Twilight Zone movie where the aliens make contact and they give humans a book, and it's all in alien writing. They meet with the United Nations, and we're going to show you our planet. We're going to conduct tours to our planets. And so the scientist decides, well, I'm going to go investigate this. And the woman runs up. Don't get on that ship. Don't get on that ship. The book. It's a cookbook.
Yeah.
Spirit cooking anybody?
Yeah.
It's a cookbook. So, I read a statistic earlier today. 89% of what was portrayed on The Simpsons over the years was actually happened. Yeah. Man, you want to talk about predictive programming? Interestingly enough, Matt Groening, the writer, or the writer, producer, the creator of The Simpsons, worked for the CIA for 30 years. Coincidence?
Yeah.
I think not. So yeah, it's all part of a deception. And even when we go back to Ephesians, the 6th chapter, in the 11th verse, when it talks about putting on it's actually several verses within there, but putting on the complete suit of armor, who does it say we have a fight against? Because we don't have a fight against flesh and blood. We have a fight against the authorities, those who are under satanic cabal. We have a fight against governments, those who are supporting it and who are going against the people's wishes. We've got a fight against the political forces, but we also have a fight against wicked spirit forces in unseen heavenly places. Wait a minute. Where did that group come up at? Unseen forces, wicked unseen forces in heavenly places. Extraterrestrial, anybody?
Right.
If they're not born on Earth, they're extraterrestrial. They're from someplace else. Does that mean that they're from another planet on the other side of our, galaxy here, or from a galaxy far, far away? they can tell us any backstory that they wanted. But, when you look at, everybody's pointed to, well, I should say a lot of people have pointed back to Gene Roddenberry and the Star Trek series as being pretty influential and being pretty close to the truth.
Yeah.
Well, they want to join the Galactic Federation of Planets. That sounds awfully familiar. The Federation Stardate, whatever the case might be. Yeah. And who are they fighting? Well, there's, makes me scratch my head. It's the Klingons. Okay, wait a minute. My ancestors involved in this? Future ancestors? But, it's the Romulans. There's these other bad guys that are out there that, are our enemies. Mm-hmm. And so that's already been predictively programmed within our psyches, from the kids that grew up with Star Trek, all the Trekkies. And then we got another synopsis with Star Wars, a constant battle against good and evil. But Star Wars made the connection made our spiritual connection with the Force. Back in the day when God's Spirit was on the nation of Israel, I'm sure they said, not may the Force be with you, but may our Lord be with you. I'm sure the first, may the Yahweh be with you. May the Most High be with you. Mm-hmm. So there were greetings that were that way. And we need to get back to our roots, our spiritual roots. If we are successfully going to face what is coming.
100%.
Jesus said,
Go ahead.
Yeah, Jesus said that men would become faint out of fear. Look at the drug rates that are happening in this country. Mm-hmm. Look at the suicide rates. The highest number of attempted suicides. And people say, well, they really didn't want to kill themselves. Well, yeah, maybe they didn't. They just didn't know how. But the least contented segment of the population are teenage girls. Mm-hmm. These are young women who are now gaining that maternal instinct, but they don't see anybody that they would want to have a child with.
Right.
Why would they want to bring up a child in this world of chaos? There could be a lot of selfish reasons in there too, but there's obviously internal conflict going on in these young women. Otherwise, they wouldn't be the highest suicide rate. So it's now, and take a look at the family. Our families are divided. Each and every family is going through its own struggles, my own included. The only way that, and it's not that we can escape this, we can only lessen the influence. And that is to stay close to our Creator. That's to start putting those bonds together, not just with our Creator, but with our family. When's the last time you gave a relative a call and said, hey, Uncle George, how are you? I was thinking about you for no particular reason. Uncle George just might fall off his chair there and say, well, you mean everything's okay? Is there nothing wrong? Yeah, just checking up on you. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
When's the last time we've done that?
Well, fortunately, I see a lot of people that are having this awakening, this spiritual moment where they are becoming aware of the corruption of those in power and that there's much more to our reality than this physical perception that we have, and they are becoming more spiritual and more aware of all of this. So it's very encouraging to me to see the amount of people that are having this shift in perception.
Absolutely, and we're going to see more have this shift in perception, especially if we do go through this great reset. How it's going to actually work, I'm not to me, it's psyops. I've heard it over and over and over and over again, and I doubt it. I'm sure that they want to collapse the dollar. They're going to have to replace it with something worthwhile. So yeah, something will happen, but how that will affect us in our day-to-day lives, it'll give us a breather. It'll let us catch our breath. It'll give us hope for the future. And a lot of people are going to have that spiritual awakening. The issue that becomes very dangerous in all this, and I've already noticed the trend, and it's even something that Jesus said, and that is the Christian patriot. Now, Jesus didn't say Christian patriot per se, but he said that there would be those among you who will offer you up to the authorities thinking that they are doing a service to God.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not saying don't be patriotic. We should all take pride in our community. We should take pride in our lives. We should take pride in our homes. We should take pride in our communities. And we all live in the United States. We should take pride in our country. Maybe not from the political viewpoint, but from the fact that we have to live here.
Right.
This is our home, you know?
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's our home. And we're seeing it destroyed in front of us. And we find that extremely frustrating as Americans.
Yes.
And so, yeah, a lot of people are going to want to fight. But sometimes the fight isn't ours to take. How are you going to fight against interdimensionals? How are you going to fight against entities that are far more powerful than us? You see, there's a difference between fighting and praying for protection. I've literally seen the hand of God, well, what I would consider the hand of God, save my life and my son's life. And that was I was never supposed to make it this far. Certainly, and the last time that I was faced with looking death in the face, literally, I just set my cruise. I just bring my son home from college on a road that I traveled hundreds of times, knew the road well. I had a nice long straightaway in front of me. I set the cruise control to 63 miles an hour. Didn't want to go too fast. It was just starting to get toward dusk. The sun had just about set. And this one section of road, it was all pine trees on the left-hand side of the road. And a deer, huge, beautiful, nice buck, jumped out of the tree line and tried jumping over the road. And I knew we were going to take him right in the windshield. Oh, no. So many things would flash through my brain, and it was over in less than 2 seconds. It was all over from the time that I first saw the deer. And as this deer is jumping, there was like, you know, how the heat radiation comes off the road. The road started looking like that, and all of a sudden a blue orb appeared. It was about the size of a grapefruit or a softball. And it expanded to about 30 inches and took the impact. This orb was between me and the deer. Wow. That deer, I hit that deer somewhere around 60 miles an hour, you know, because I had barely any time to step on the brake. The deer vanished from before my eyes. It was like, where'd it go? And I got the car stopped, and I got out and I ran back to look at the deer. I didn't quite get back far enough to see it, and I ran back to look at the car, and I was like, what just happened? What did I see? And so, you know, my son that was with me ran back and actually ran up upon the deer. And he said that as he approached the deer, it jumped up and it pranced off like it was proud.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I called my other son, told him what happened. I said, I'm going to meet you at this junction, at this point, which was at the end of the road. There was actually a large parking area there where this road came down into the next road. I said, I can drive the car. I said, the windshield's a bit messed up, but, you know, we drove the car to the friend of mine who owned a body shop there. And the next day I went back and we took pictures of it. And the windshield, when you look at the windshield, there is a round depression about 30 inches in diameter pressed into that windshield. The deer, its antlers bent the rain gutter on the passenger side, and it urinated down the driver's side. That deer went across the whole windshield, literally.
Wow.
But only that round circle was depressed. And I showed that to my wife, Maggie. It was before we got married. I showed her a picture of that. And she looked at it and she was like, "Did you notice that there's an image of an angel in that broken glass?" And I said, "No, I never did." I said, "Look at it." So I looked at it, and yeah, you can see like the outline of what you could call an angel in that glass. But when I was waiting for my son to show up there, took him about 45 minutes. I went into deep meditation and broke down every bit of what I had seen, like almost looking at a movie frame by frame.
Mm-hmm.
What did I actually see? What did I actually witness? And all I could say after it all was over is I got to see the hand of God in real time. Now, interestingly enough, that was on a Friday evening. I always watched headline news back then. And the second story on headline news was about a family of three who had a doe, a smaller deer. And they hit it, they said, at 45 miles an hour. And the deer went through the windshield, out the back windshield, and put all three of them in the hospital in critical condition.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that confirmation?
Yeah. Yeah, my dad hit a deer and its ass came through the window, and he's lucky to live. It crapped all over him. He had a deer ass in his face, but he lived. The car was destroyed. So I know how treacherous those accidents can be with those large animals.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I was looking at it as a sure death situation. When that deer jumped, I thought, that's it. It's all over. We're done.
Mm.
And I only had time to say one word. My mind processed everything, and I just knew that we were, but I can't say that on the air. Anyway.
Oh, no, it's all good. You can say whatever you want here, but.
We'll let that go. There could be, hey, if you've ridden the school bus, you've heard it all by the third grade.
Yes,
so that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
I just hope you can keep your sanity intact and don't become a kitty cat before you graduate,
Exactly.
It's such a sad situation in which we find ourselves in these days.
Yes.
But hey, we have entered those last days, the last days of this system of evil, where we are actually seeing this being taken down. Now I'm going to jump back to Revelation 17 because people say, "Oh, Trump's got God's support. Trump's doing the work of God." Read exactly what it says at the end of Revelation 17. They carry out this mission because God put it into their hearts. He put it into their hearts to carry out his very will until that will has been completed. And once that will has been completed, to destroy Babylon the Great, to bring down religion that has just done nothing but made mankind suffer for the last 2,000 years and longer in some cases. Which empire do you want to go back under? It was always the priest class that was told the king what to do.
Yeah.
You want to become a star god? You better listen to us.
We are definitely in fascinating times, Peter. We are almost out of time here, but we are going to have a follow-up show in March. We're going to get even deeper into all of this unfolding. Before we close out, though, remind the audience how they can find out more about you, pick up your books, and anything else you got going on.
Okay, well, I got to digress here just a little bit.
Sure.
I've been off grid. I've been off grid for about a little over 3 years, and I do like being off grid. It does have its limitations, and being able to do radio shows is one of them. However, the state did a major upgrade, and so now we actually have switching facilities that work in a little bit more bandwidth, which is good. So I can do radio shows. But the book has been put out of publication. Ran into some issues there, so I just let that situation go away. I do want to bring it back into print with the original publisher that I had it printed with. I got to raise a little money to do that. I don't have a printing contract with them anymore, so oh well. But if you want to read Letters to Earth, You Can Survive Armageddon. We do have a fantastic future. We really do. We write about that in the book too. Just email me, ONE, the word one, at peterkling.com, PeterKling.com. and I will send you a PDF version for free. You can join me on Facebook. I have not done anything with my website, and so this is more like a coming out party for me. And the whole reason I'm back is because my life wasn't centering around serving my Father. And I let other things creep in. Because when we don't stay focused on having that spiritual relationship with our Creator, we are certain that Satan and his minions will make inroads to our lives, causing one situation after another situation. Not that we were facing any great horror stories. I mean, hey, the last few years has been tough for everybody. We got through it just like everybody else is getting through it, and we'll continue to work to get through it as we go. But it took us away from our mission. And we need to be on a mission, all of us, one way or another. We need to be on a mission that we are going to get through this mess that's ahead of us. And when you're on a mission, you got to make sure that your food supplies are taken care of. You got to make sure your water supplies are taken care of. You have to make sure that you've got backup systems for backup systems. And that's one of the things, we don't live on the grid, so I'm not subject to blackouts unless I go turn off the generator or stop making electricity. And so I'm a little isolated, but I'm still part of this planet. And nobody can escape from what's coming. So the best thing we can do is be prepared. And the greatest thing that we can do is have knowledge. So, yes, ONE@peterkling.com. I'll send you a free PDF copy. The other thing that I would recommend to everybody is read the Bible, or at least listen to a reading of the Bible, and do it daily. And don't start with Genesis. Go start with the Gospel. Start with the Christian scriptures and pay attention to that first. That is more applicable in our lives right now. And start using Jesus in those experiences as an example in our own lives. And then what happens is that all of a sudden, that Spirit of God, that Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost, as someone would like to talk about it, but it's actually will start to be motivated. That will be activated. We'll start drawing closer to our Creator, and we'll start having a better life all the way around. We won't be worrying as much. We will not be as concerned because we know that the opportunity is being given us to get through this mess and to survive this mess, and then to be able to return this planet back into the paradise Earth that it's supposed to be, rehabilitate the planet, and our DNA itself will be rehabilitated. There's much greater things to come, but I'm going to save that for the next show.
Excellent. So, that's a great note to close on.
Yep, it's in Letters to Earth. It's in the last chapter. So, but Perfect. There we go. There's much better coming. And with that, I want to thank you, Chris, for giving me the opportunity of being here. And I'm sure Maggie would like to come back and do some shows with. And Maggie's great in helping people. She is such a great spiritual guide. She's just phenomenal that way. Wonderful. And so, she's taking care of family business. I haven't seen her now for a couple of weeks. Nice to come home, honey. but yeah, she doesn't have a whole lot of choice. She had to make some decisions that, got to take care of this, and now's a better time than later. So Excellent. My love and prayers are with her, as my love and prayers are with everybody on this planet, especially those people who hear our words. May they take them to heart. So, Chris, thank you again very much. Until next time.
Thank you, Peter. We will definitely be speaking again soon. Looking forward to that. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We will talk again on Monday. We'll see y'all then.